Hey, it's that time again. Time for another episode of Shelve It or Shove It, the completely superficial way to pick books for your TBR based solely on their covers. And I am your host, Daisy Ex Machina, the drag queen detective who investigates all things speculative in science fiction, fantasy, and horror. The way we play this game is to go onto Goodreads new releases and just look at the covers and shelve the covers we like and shove the covers we don't, and then ultimately picking one book based solely on their covers in the categories of young adult, science fiction, and fantasy. So let's go ahead and start with young adult. And first up we have A Fragile Enchantment by Allison Saft. And obviously this is a romance, and I'm not a big fan of romances, but I do like this cover. I really do like this illustration. I like the colors. I think this is a standout from what I've been seeing in romance covers recently. I don't really like that super cutesy cartoony thing. This looks interesting. It looks like a period romance, and I'm assuming with an enchantment in the title it's going to be a fantasy, but I'm not into fantasy or romantasy, so I'm going to go ahead and shove it. Next up is The Invocations by Crystal Sutherland. And I don't recognize the author, but I like this cover quite a lot. It's obviously witches or craft. It's giving me that type of vibe. And I like this illustration with the smoke going across the lead girl's face. That's sort of distorting her face. It's very striking. I like this a lot. So I am going to have to shelve it. Next we have Arya Kanna's Bollywood Moment by Arushi Avachat. And this is exactly the type of cover I do not like. So compare it to the other one. What was it called? The Enchantment, the Fragile Enchantment. This illustration is very, I think, cartoony, and I'm not attracted to this type of artwork, but I'm seeing it a lot. And it is a romance, and you know I'm not a big fan of romance. So I'm going to have to shove it. Next up is The Getaway List by Emma Lord. Same type of cover as last one. Obviously another romance, and not particularly drawn to this cover. So I'm going to have to shove it. Next up is So Let Them Burn by Camila Cole. And there's a lot of colors going on. Well, a lot of pinks and blues going on. It's making it a very striking cover. And there are little dragons, it looks like, flying around this woman's face. And I kind of like this. I wish the title was like smaller and away from the maybe on the upper third, so we can just see more of that gorgeous artwork, because I do like this artwork. I'm assuming it's a fantasy, so I'm going to go ahead and shelve it. But now we move on to science fiction, and if you saw last month's Shelve It or Shove It, we're doing a lot better. We've already shelved to young adult. So let's take a look at science fiction. First up is Room City. I am not crazy about the title, but this cover is crazy looking. What is going on? This has some type of cyborg android, but with a fetus growing in the head in some type of fishbowl. What? Now, this is a type of cover I like. It's telling me a story. It's very graphic. There's no words like running over it, so I can't see this artwork. The author is, oh boy, Talatlo Tanasi Apologies for mispronouncing that. And it's making me have a lot of questions. First and foremost, is this a metaphor for some type of future artificial womb, or is this a literal interpretation of something in the novel where there's a baby in some type of Oh, maybe the baby is controlling an android body? That would be interesting. Lots of questions, but I am loving this artwork. I'm not really crazy about the title. It's kind of making me cringe because I don't really want to read about wombs, artificial or otherwise. But this cover is giving me so much, I just have to shelve it. Next up is a quantum love story by Mike Chen. And I do recognize the name of the author, but I have not read anything by Mike Chen. If you have, let me know what it's like in the comments. I like the retro look of this cover. This illustration is very retro, and there's San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge, so I know the setting. And there's a donut and a racquetball and some people. Oh, there's a cat. There's a little upside down green cat. Love story. Again, I'm not crazy about romances, so that's turning me off. And I do kind of like this cover, though. Shall we do it? Shall we do it? Even though it's a love story, I'm going to do it. I'm going to shelve it. Next up is Ordia by Seth Dickinson. And it is assaulting my eyes. That yellow is just such a bright neon. And there's an eyeball in the center looking at me surrounded by snakes. And there's a recommendation by Arcady Martine. And I do like that author, Arcady Martine, from a memory called Empire. It's a duology, very good. This one, I'm not sure what this is about. Snakes and an eyeball? It could be, I want to say AI, but I don't know why I'm saying that, because it's more, I guess, maybe bio science fiction. But I would need to know more. I would need to read the blurb, and that's not what we're doing here. So I'm going to have to shove it. Next up is The Tusks of Extinction by Ray Naylor. So I'm assuming these are mastodon, woolly mammoth tusks, which are extinct, obviously. So the cover is matching the title. I don't know. This dark black background and the tusks in the front, I appreciate they're sort of lit with multiple different colored lights, but I don't know. I wish I got something more about a character or more of a scene. And is it just me, or are publishers just not paying for really exciting artwork these days? I don't know, but I'm going to have to shove it. And last in science fiction is Beautyland by Marie Helen Bertino. This is a type of cover that drives me nuts because it is so bad. It is so simplistic, looks very amateur Photoshop, and I don't know who would pick up this book, at least not based on the cover. Maybe if you're a fan of the author, but the font of the author's name is hard to read and at a weird angle, so I really feel sorry for this author for getting this cover, but I really do not like it. I'm going to go ahead and have to shove it. Now we move on to fantasy. And first up is Sarah J. Maas, House of Flame and Shadow. Now, I'm not a big fan of Sarah J. Maas, and I know it says a Crescent City novel. I know this is a series. And I usually don't like the covers of Sarah J. Maas novels, but I like this one a lot. This is some gorgeous artwork. This woman, it almost reminds me of Geiger, this woman with, I don't know, in some type of column, I guess, with snakes running in and out. Gorgeous, gorgeous cover. But like I said, this is a series, and I believe Sarah J. Maas is mostly romantasy, which is not the type of fantasy I look for. So even though I think this is such an excellent cover, I am going to shove it. Next up is Emily Wilde's Map of the Other Lands by Heather Fawcett. And I know this is it says book 2 of the Emily Wilde series, because I remember book 1, which is Encyclopedia of Fairies, I believe. And I think I shelved it, although I didn't pick it ultimately, but I do like this cover. It looks like a textbook, especially the first book, Encyclopedia. And I actually kind of want to read this series. I don't think I'm going to pick it for Shelve It or Shove It because it's the second book and I haven't read the first book, but I do like this cover, even though I'm going to shove it. Next up is The Atlas Complex by Olivia Blake. And it says the author of Atlas 6, so I'm assuming Atlas Complex is part of a series. It says Power is Taken, and I do not like this cover. I mean, it's giving me an atlas, which is what the title promises, but other than that, I'm not excited about this cover at all. Even the colors are kind of bland, and I do see there's a sword and moon phases. I don't think this is an exciting cover, even though I've heard a lot of good things about the Atlas 6 in this author. So, nonetheless, I'm going to have to shove it. Next up is Faybound by Sari El Arifi. And I like this artwork quite a bit. I like the stylistic trees. I like the sort of muted red tones, and I'm not crazy about Faybound being on its side because it's hard to read. Nonetheless, I do like this artwork, and for the title, it's about fae that are bound. Not getting that much of a story with this, with the trees on a night sky, and oh dear. There is a recommendation by Samantha Shannon, who's the author of The Priory of the Orange Tree, which wasn't my favorite book, but it says, a romantic fantasy of epic proportions. So right away, now I know it's a romantasy, and I don't want to read a romantasy, which is a shame because I like this cover. But now that I know it's a romantasy, I think I'm going to go and shove it. And the final book in fantasy, and the last one we're going to look at, is The Djinn Waits 100 Years by Shabnam Khan. I don't like this cover. I mean, it says Djinn in the title. I kind of want to see the Djinn, but I'm seeing this woman, maybe she is a Djinn, at a profile. It looks... Again, this looks like a Photoshop with cutting up some stock images and giving it some colors and textures. Not a really big fan of this because I don't think it's well done. So, yeah, I'm going to have to shove it. Okay, this was a much better showing than last month, where I just shelved one book because I shelved 4 books. 2 young adults and 2 science fictions. In young adult, we have The Invitation by Crystal Sutherland and So Let Them Burn by Camila Cole. In science fiction, we have Womb City by Talatlo Tasmasi and A Quantum Love Story by Mike Chen. And even though I didn't pick a fantasy in it, there was a couple of covers I really did like in fantasy, but I didn't shelve them for one reason or another. And all in all, I think this month was a vast improvement in terms of covers than last month. So Here's hoping that that trend will continue in the future. But right now, I need to make a decision. Do I want to go with the young adult horror, the invocations about unassuming witches, or So Let Them Burn by Camilla Cole, which I assume is a fantasy with the dragons, or Womb City, which has a freaky title and a freaky cover, or a quantum love story by Mike Chen. And I don't know why I picked the Mike Chen book. I mean, I do like the retro look of the cover. Don't like it's a love story. There's like these math symbols, physics symbols. I'm almost guessing it's a timeline with the word quantum in the title. And it looks a little quirky with the donut and the racquetball. But you know what I think about romance, so I don't think I want to pick up a science fiction love story. So, no for that. And I'm going to say no to So Let Them Burn because the cover is not giving me enough of a story of what's going on. There's a girl with dragons. How does that jam with the story? I don't know. So I'm going to say no to that. The invocations, I know I'm going to get some type of craft witch story. Womb City has that wacky illustration that, again, I don't know if that's a metaphor for what the novel's about, or literally are babies growing in these android fishbowl heads. So, even though I'm not interested in wombs, I'm going to go with Womb City. I mean, it has to be the most striking cover I've seen in a long time. And it's giving me so many questions, and yet it's telling me something about the story. But let's go ahead and now read the blurb and see what I've gotten myself into. Womb City imagines a dark and deadly future Botswana, rich with culture and true folklore, which begs the question, how far must one go to destroy the structures of inequality upon which a society was founded? How far must a mother go to save the life of her child? Neela seems to have it all. Wealth, fame, a husband, and a child on the way. But in a body her husband controls via microchip and the tailspin of a loveless marriage, her hopes and dreams come to a devastating halt. A drug-fueled night of celebration ends in a hit and run. To dodge a sentencing in a society that favors men, Neela and her side piece, Janice Kushel, finish the victim off and bury the body. But the secret claws its way into Neela's life from the grave. As her victim's vengeful ghost begins exacting a bloody revenge on everyone Neela holds dear, she'll have to unravel her society's terrible secrets to stop those in power and become a monster unlike any other to quench the ghost's violent thirst. Okay, I'm going to go out on a limb and say the cover is metaphorical and not a literal image of what we're going to find in this very strange blend of genres, because we're seeing science fiction, but then we're seeing elements of horror, especially with the ghost, and it's set in sort of this dystopian future. Now, I'm not crazy about reading dystopians with the allegory of men and women, because I've just read it so much. It's so pervasive in this dystopian subgenre. I am curious about this horror twist to it, and especially with the main character hiding a body, and I'm a little thrown by the term side piece. I don't hear that used outside of some Netflix shows, but okay. I am curious about this. I am less interested now than just seeing the cover now that I've read the blurb, to be honest, but I am excited to give it a chance. But I want to know what books you would have picked based solely on their covers. Let me know down in the comments, and don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Until we meet again, may all the books you read be